Okay, so if we can start with a nice simple one, how and when did you get involved in the IT industry?
Yeah, so I've been at GBG, which is a technology company, for 12 years. So that's my kind of history in the IT industry. My background's actually in marketing. So I worked at a marketing agency before this, and went into a marketing role when I first joined GBG. So it was kind of an accident that I went into the IT industry, but I've kind of served my time at GBG and just seen things change so dramatically and grow so dramatically as well that it's been quite a ride.
Okay, so you say it was an accident. I mean, did you were just looking for another role in marketing, or did the IT industry at all attract you? Did you like the idea of being involved in that because of all the things that go on, or it was just literally you were looking to move on and it was a nice coincidence?
Yeah, exactly. I was looking to move on, and the role was there, and I just really liked the company from when I first came for an interview. But of course, the IT industry is so vast that I think many roles that are out there are within the technology industry. So it is attractive, but I think from my perspective, 12 years ago, it was more the role that attracted me to it, and then that's where I kind of got into the industry.
Okay, and in terms of what you found when you arrived and how that might have evolved, I mean, did you find perhaps marketing, there may not have been such an obvious sort of majority of men doing roles as opposed to women, but more generally within the company, were you surprised that there were rather more males than females, or was that not the case? I mean, what did you find? What did the employee landscape look like?
Yeah, I mean, there are definitely more males than females, but I would say from a marketing standpoint, less so. But I spent 2 years in marketing and then I moved into a product role, so that was definitely where I saw more of that split to be more obvious, because I'm working with developers, I'm working with scrum masters, working with product owners, technology leaders on a daily basis. So I spent 8 years in product management after I've moved from the marketing team in GBG, and yeah, I've definitely seen more of a male dominated environment there. The many times where I was the only woman in the room, or one of few women in the room, where we have planning meetings and kind of reviews and retrospectives, etc. So yeah, I definitely saw that from a technology landscape perspective.
And in terms of how you've been treated both within the organization and externally, do you think you've always been accepted for who you are, regardless of the fact that you are a woman or a man, or have you been aware of the odd occasion where you maybe haven't been given the credit or treated in the way that you perhaps think you should have, because you know your job, but maybe someone's thinking, oh, you're a woman, but I need to talk to them about, or what, I don't know, without exaggerating it, but have you ever bumped into that kind of bias, I suppose?
No, I mean, I've always been really lucky, to be honest, that I've been accepted for who I am. I've been, I work with really great people. I have worked with really great people over the 12 years. Of course, there's always those kind of natural conversations where it might, be because I'm a woman that a conversation might happen in a certain way, or it might be that I'm asked about a certain thing because I'm a woman, and I'm a parent, I'm a mum. So I think sometimes those accidental things happen quite naturally, but I've never found that to be much of an issue. It's more just making, I think, as an individual, making your point valid, making yourself, kind of expressing your opinions, should just be the way that we work, and people accepting you for who you are.
And in terms of how things might have changed, I mean, are you aware within despite the fact you say you've been treated pretty much for who you are, which is great, but have you been aware that in the company that there have been various initiatives to sort of address diversity, whether that's in overt ways, setting up groups of staff, or just generally aware that people are more more conscious of what's going on and how to deal with it? Is that something you bumped into?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we've got a real focus on it at GBG. We have a inclusion and diversity program called Be Yourself, so everybody can be yourself at work. And I definitely see more of a focus on that in the last few years. And really, from a positive perspective, that's where I would say I've seen, you know, a real positive change in that we have a focus on diversity, all types of diversity and inclusion, but gender being part of that. We have a really kind of positive focus on there, and I have seen people be more conscious, and that's just people learning and growing as they, you know, as they learn about inclusion and diversity, of how they treat women or how they work with women, and I think that's a really positive thing. I'd say that the challenges from my perspective, I think the challenges come maybe with that kind of face women a bit more are things like the imposter syndrome type feelings and thinking. Confidence has definitely been an issue from my perspective. I know that's more of an individual thing, but I think that definitely does crop up with women more often than men, that confidence can be an issue, to making yourself heard. So I think that's where I think some of the challenges have been, but I've definitely seen more positive action happening around, you know, inclusion for females.
And in terms, you mentioned family life as well. So has that been something that could have been an issue, but you know your company's helped you through that in terms of, I don't know, any time you would have had off and coming back to work, or have you not had to worry about that because I say they've made it all very smooth for you?
Yeah, I think they have made it smooth. I've had two kids while I've been at GBG, so I've had both of my maternity leaves there, and I think it has been smooth, but it's always a challenge. You know, that there's both the kind of maternity aspect in that you're out of the company for, you know, in my case, I was out of the company for 10 months, but you're out of the company usually, you know, 9 to 12 months. And I think that is quite difficult because you kind of take that step out and then have to step back in either, you know, at the same place, or sometimes you have to kind of get back up to speed. And I think we need to give women, you know, we need to make that not an issue, that they have to kind of either take a step back or a step out of the workplace. I mean, again, I was lucky with where I work that, you know, that didn't impact me negatively, but it was taking lots of, you know, almost a year out of my career to come back. So it's always that kind of that worry, I think, from an individual perspective, from a personal perspective, that are you going to go back into the same role, or are you going to have enough of a challenge to kind of bring you back? So I think the kind of maternity bit is difficult, but then also just on an ongoing perspective, I think all parents understand that it is really difficult to balance that kind of work and family life. I've definitely seen an improvement, as I think many of us have in the pandemic, where everybody was kind of forced to work from home. That was both a challenge in itself because we had kids at home and we had homeschooling, but also you know, that kind of flexibility is definitely increased, and you know, people, that's definitely helped parents, I think.
Okay, and in terms of things, sort of other things that might be done, do you have any thoughts, you know, when you go into work, or just look at the sort of the work lives of folks generally, are the things you think, oh wow, wouldn't it be great if we could do this, or can we stop doing that? Any thoughts as to, or do you think we are sort of evolving at a reasonable pace, and therefore one day we will arrive at this, I won't call it nirvana, because I mean it shouldn't be that, you know, it should just be normal, that, you know, diversity of, you know, as wide as possible term is just what workplaces are about.
Yeah, I mean, I think we're definitely evolving at the pace that we should be. I'm not sure that's right, because I think we should be there. Like you say, it should be the normal that diversity is there from the start. But unfortunately, that's not the case. And I think more needs to be done in terms of making some of those things easier, like childcare, like flexibility of working. You know, being able to get women to work and balance the lifestyle, the kind of work-life balance, because I think, like I say, I'm really lucky. GBG has a work when and where you want policy, so that that really helps me from a flexibility standpoint. But more often than not, the kind of childcare and the logistical pieces of parenting often fall to women, and I think more needs to be done for women in those cases, and with things like childcare and help, because I think in many cases some people don't go back to work because of the availability of childcare and the cost of childcare. So I think more needs to be done there to support women getting back into the workplace, or getting into the workplace in the beginning, because that just makes it more kind of available for everybody.
And just on that point, do you think it's I mean, I guess lots of organisations can have a role to play, but do you think would you like to see sort of government-led? I know they're talking about it at the moment. It's one of the things, isn't it, the issue of childcare, that a lot of people just say, well, it's a no-brainer. Why would I go back to work? Because it's going to cost me more in childcare than you're going to pay me. So, and end of discussion. Or do you think companies as well as can potentially help more and be more flexible? It sounds in your case that is happening, but do you think there are a lot of companies still aren't perhaps as helpful when it comes to whether it's people arriving late at work or leaving early, or taking time off when children are sick? Just that sort of who's best placed, if you like, to make the changes?
Yeah, I mean, I think I'm going to go in the middle, because I think there's a bit of both. I think more needs to be done by the government to support, but also from a workplace standpoint, I think that flexibility bit is key, because if you can give people the flexibility, I mean, we use the phrase at GBG, work is something you do, not somewhere you go. And I think if you can afford people the flexibility to take their kids to school or pick their kids up from school, and they will still do a great job. It's not the fact that you have to be in an office 9 to 5 anymore. And I think many companies out there still stipulate that you have to be in an office, you have to work certain number of hours a week. They don't afford that flexibility, and I think that's definitely impacting more women than men, but parents in general. That does impact people being able to go back to work and to work in the industry.
And I'm just struck me in terms of the role that you do. Have you had to adapt, or the company adapt at all because of children? I'm thinking, like in my own life, if you go away on a business trip, for example. I mean, I'm lucky my other half's a nurse and she works shifts, so we can normally combine it, and so it's not a problem. But have you had to not do certain things because you're aware that you can't be away from home for a certain period of time or stuff, or have you not really noticed any sort of significant impacts, if you like?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's always there when you do have to work away from home. It's always difficult, both from a kind of emotional standpoint and from a practical standpoint. And I think women maybe feel that kind of mum guilt, as we call it, quite significantly, and it is very difficult to kind of leave home for a significant period of time. So I think that does limit, I mean, thank God the world has opened up technology wise, so we can do things like this and talk over video, but obviously there are those kind of face-to-face interactions that still make all the difference, and that is quite difficult, being able to travel, being able to kind of go abroad or whatever it is, because I think that that kind of balance between home and work life. I mean, it's quite pertinent. This week I'm in London for a few days, luckily, as you said about your other half, luckily we're able to juggle it between us. My parents are nearby, so they're able to support as well. But those things can be quite difficult to do.
Yeah, and I'm thinking as well, just again, another thing came into my head. I can imagine a situation, or I can't imagine a situation, if I went to my, not now because I work for myself, so if you like, I kind of control my own life, but in the days when I work for somebody, if I'd gone to them and said, you need to be flexible for me because my wife is going away and I need to look after the children, I can imagine I'd have been greeted with derision, or what's that got to do with you? Do you think that kind of conversation, we're ready to have that, so that if you like, men in the main, I guess, can go to their bosses and say, you know, my wife has to do this work-wise, therefore you need to help me, or is it best not to present it that the bloke just says, I need to be, you know, you to be flexible with me for work-wise without giving the reason? If that makes sense.
I mean, I think that definitely should be a conversation. You know, everybody is entitled and should be able to work, and this kind of goes back to the kind of gender imbalance. You know, quite often falls on the women to kind of stay at home and do the childcare if they can't you know, go back to work, and they haven't got the support system around them. So I think that conversation definitely does need to happen with men as well, where they are able to be able to afford the flexibility to support, so that their partners can do well in their career as well. So I think that conversation should definitely happen. I mean, that companies should be flexible, full stop. I know there are situations where, you know, if it's a support line, or you know, if it's a people that are working shifts or whatever it is, I know there are situations where they, you know, companies can't be flexible, or organizations can't be flexible. But I think where they can be, and there isn't a kind of limit on hours, or there isn't a, you know, a need for people to be in the office, absolutely, that kind of, like I say, work when and where you want type approach should definitely be something that's afforded to male and females.
Okay, and maybe just to finish up, I mean, in terms of the IT industry, so you came in sort of in the marketing, and you're now, sounds as if you got yourself engrossed in the technology. But I mean, I'd be interested to know what it is the company does. But do you think that is you'd recommend it to anyone, you know, as a career? It's an exciting industry and stuff, or any reservations because of what you find there, or it's all good stuff?
Yeah, no, it's no reservations. I'd say go for it. You know, it's the place to be in terms of technology is our now and our future. So, you know, IT industry is absolutely where you should be. So yeah, so I just a bit about the company. GBG is a digital identity and fraud intelligence company. So we verify identities, we prevent fraud, we investigate fraud, and we also look at address verification and location intelligence as well. So we are you know, I've seen that kind of rapid transformation from a digital standpoint, which is exciting. It's really an exciting industry to be in. You know, I've learned a lot. I'm still learning every single day. I've learned a lot in the roles that I've played. So I came into marketing, as I said. I went into the product team for about 8 years, and now I'm in the strategy teams. I'm head of strategy at GBG. So I've really seen that kind of, you know, transformation of the technology industry, the digital transformation of our world that we live in, which is a really exciting place to be. So I'd absolutely say go for a role, you know, within the technology industry, because you just learn so much. You meet great people, you learn about the world that we live in, and there's lots of opportunities out there for everybody.
Okay, that's lovely. Been really good to chat. So Laura, I appreciate your time. Thank you very much indeed.
No problem. Thank you.